Hey guys, what's going on? Dr. Bo Hightower coming back with another med school blog here from St. James School of Medicine. So I wanted to check in with you guys. Been a hectic semester so far. Definitely in the heat of it. We're going into final, so I figured I would drop a video just kind of talking about some of the ways that I've learned to study and some of the things that have been successful and not successful for me in med school, particularly Caribbean med school. So this video I think is going to be titled something like "How to Get Good Grades in Medical School" or something like that. So yeah, if you guys didn't know, I guess I'm 40 now, a 40-year-old chiropractor and an naturopathic physician, and I went back to medical school, so I'm just finishing first year. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the technological changes and things that have happened since I started going to college back in 2002, and what's worked for me and what hasn't. So this semester, I think I tabulated in my class, I've had the highest grade in my class on like 12, I think, of the 17 major exams. So I just wanted to kind of break down like what has worked for me. Now that may not work for you guys, obviously. Everybody has a different study style, but like I think the main thing when you're in med school is efficiency with your time and trying to find some sort of balance in life. And so this is going to be highly variable. It may not apply to schools that don't have grades, that have pass-fail systems, and schools that don't have attendance requirements. So our school has attendance requirements. I think I missed one or two classes. If I'm going to do this school, I'm going to go. And the first tip that I'm going to tell you guys is to pay attention in class, especially if you have a school that has attendance requirements. Going to class and spending 7, 8 hours a day there while you're on social media or watching videos or whatever else. I know there are some people who were able to like study during class with other voices. I'm not one of them. Basically nothing's happening if I'm trying to study other stuff while a teacher's talking, and frankly it's a little bit rude and disrespectful to the teacher. So the big one to start with is like utilizing that time, really focusing in. It takes mental energy to pay attention and try to learn and listen to these teachers, especially if they have accents and things like that. So but that's the big one, because if you don't, then you just spent 7 or 8 hours not doing anything, and now you're gonna have to go make up that time. Even if you're watching videos and things on 2x speed, you're gonna spend 3 or 4 more hours studying after that, maybe 5. So now you've burned 13 hours of your day, which, you could have used that time with your family. You could have used that time exercising or, other things to keep you healthy. And I think that's a big one. And I think people just, they don't want to do that, but I think it's really important, especially for having a balanced life. The second one is going to be like, where do people get resources from? So if you guys are med students, you know that everybody's all over the place with third-party resources. Pick something. There's like 15 different ones out there for board reviews and everything else. And it's like some weird arms race on like who's got the best resources and this and that and the other. The first thing I'm going to say, like I said, I score pretty well on my tests. Now I have to caveat that with I have taken a lot of these courses, even though it's been a very long time. I graduated chiropractic school in 2010. But there is some familiarity for me for some of these topics. And some of the topics I know really well, like musculoskeletal and neuroscience, obviously. But like the number one source if you want to get good grades is going to be what the teachers give you. So like we have NBME exams that come from the actual NBME organization, and the teachers don't have access to that. So when you're studying for those, like you can find other resources, obviously stuff like Amboss or UWorld or things can be helpful. I don't ever do questions personally. That will probably change as I approach step one. But a question takes too long, in my opinion, to get it wrong and then try to understand why you got it wrong. And then you're over here memorizing questions, and most of those types of questions aren't going to be on your exams. I find it to be a much more useful use of your time to be actively learning the actual material. That way you can work through the actual questions and know how to answer them. That way, no matter how they divvy the question up and throw it at you, you'll be able to work through it because you understand the background material. So that's a big one. So the number one resource I'm going to say is whatever information the professors give you. So their PowerPoints, their slides, their reviews. So particularly for in-house exams, like they're the ones picking the questions. So they're going to be the ones targeting you where to look, where to study. So the number one place you want to go is to the slides. And you need to figure out how to work through those slides efficiently. So for me, and for most people, I think spaced repetition is the name of the game. Just, re-exposing yourself over and over again. And to that extent, like the big resource for me has been Anki. So I'm going to put a little asterisk on that. Like other people's Anki doesn't work for me. I tried it a couple times and it's not the game. So what I will typically do for an exam, I'll spend about 4 or 5 hours. So I'll try to get a breakdown of what's going to be on an exam, like what kind of topics there are, and then I'll go through the slides or the review. And what I'll do is I'll look at the slide for whatever topic, and I will make my own Anki cards based on whatever's on that slide or whatever's there. And the big thing is differentiation. So I'll look at that slide and ask, how would a teacher ask a question related to this topic? So like, da 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 da, is this a mismatch repair? Is this homologous end repair? Is this, a mismatch repair for Lynch syndrome? Whatever the topic is. You want to ask, I'll formulate the question into an Anki card, and I'll usually use speech activation, so I'll be talking to it. So I'm reading the slide, I'm verbalizing it out loud, I'm formulating it into a way that I can understand the question, so when I go back through it, I know what I'm looking at. So if I'm using other people's resources, that's not the way my brain operates. So the clues or the things that would cue my brain into that are not going to be there because it's somebody else's brain that made those cards. It's a little bit time consuming, but I think it works a lot better. At least for me, it works a lot better. So for like a normal 50 to 100 question test, I'll do 4 hours making the card 2 days before an exam. The day before the exam, I'll go through with a 3x pass through for Anki. So like you'll have to pass each card 3 times to get it off the deck the first time. And I'm not very fancy with the Anki. I know a lot of people have all these like AI things or whatever. I'm like literally treating it like digital flashcards, but I have it on my phone. Like I don't use computer for Anki. I literally just use Anki for Android. And so I can be walking on the treadmill and going over flashcards. I can lay down in bed and go over them, whatever, active learning, passive learning, whatever you're going to be doing. That really works well for me. And then, what I find is if I go through, so that's basically you go through 3 times. So I might make 400 cards for an exam. So it might take me 3 or 4 hours to get through it all for the first time. And then it'll take me like another hour or so to get through it a second and a third time. So if I do that, I'm usually going to score between 92 and 98 on an exam, generally speaking. Obviously, there's limitations to that, like how hard the questions are, or if I didn't go find the resources that I was supposed to find as far as, making the cards the way that I need to. So that's kind of dependent on that too. And then, there's a couple ways that I've approached finals. This is just my second go at it. I scored decently well, high 70s to low 80s, generally speaking, on the NBME exams, which tends to be in the 99th percentile, 96th percentile compared to U.S. medical students, but usually at the top of my class. And some of that's just like knowing the material enough to answer any question on it. And there's 2 ways that I've approached it, and I still haven't figured out if I've got the right one yet. One is to just combine all of my cards that I made the entire semester into one deck, and that typically is going to be like well over 2,000 cards. So if I have 2 to 3 days to study for it, I might be able to get through all the cards once or twice. The thing about those giant exams is like the level of detail and information you're just not going to be able to get for that exam like you would on a smaller one. But that should be plenty. Like, you're not going to get, nobody's going to get 95, 98 on the NBME or STEP exams. It's just too much information, too much material for each topic. So really, for most people, you're going to be wanting to hit above 60, 65. For me, I like to go a little higher than that, obviously. So that's kind of, I've experimented with that. And the other thing that I'm trying out this time is Melvin's PDFs. I probably don't have time to make those into Anki cards. There is a deck out there that people have already made them, but like I said, for me, that doesn't really work. But you guys can go find that. There's a ton of great Anki decks out there. Zonky, and obviously everybody loves Onking. People have definitely succeeded with that. But for me personally, I like to make my own cards. So I don't think I'll have enough time to go through all of Melvin's PDFs and make my own decks out of them. Just because you're short on time, you get 2 days, 3 days between each one, and you're doing the whole semester's worth. So I'm hoping my cumulative knowledge from the entire semester of studying will be a pretty good base to start with. And then I'm still tinkering if I'm going to go back and forth and just read his PDFs a few times, and then maybe run my Anki cards a couple more times, and anything that I'm struggling with, I'll go back and I'll use YouTube videos. So, stuff like Dirty Medicine, Medicosis Perfectionalis is a channel that I'll watch sometimes. His videos are a little longer than what you'll have time for a lot of exams. But if you're using it to supplement your daily education, I think those videos are they're concise, they're high yield, and they can help you a lot. So what else do I have? Get enough sleep. Like there's no amount of studying for like regular exams that's worth giving up sleep for. So I never go, I try not to ever go less than 7 hours of sleep. Like you're better off getting sleep than staying up and studying more. Um, you need to set up your schedule and figure out how you're going to work around that. Obviously, I'm older and married, so I don't go out, I don't drink or anything like that. But I do like to find some time for family, and I walk the dogs every day. That's like a non uh, that I can't put those away. It's a non-negotiable. I try to go to the gym at least 6 days a week for about an hour or so, and then I like to walk for an hour a day. So that's 2 hours of exercise. If that cuts into the study time, like studying doesn't matter if I'm not healthy. So your mental health has to be there, your physical health has to be there, and finding some time for some spiritual health and some family health as well. So those are super crucial. And then of course, the givens, right? Like don't procrastinate, and just really don't get behind. I mean, that's the big thing. When I was younger, I would do that, and I realized how much stress and it's probably how this beard got so gray is like not paying attention for most of the semester and then trying to get it all back at the end. It's no way to live your life. You don't want to do that. You'd like to get a real high score and you can kind of coast towards the end. Whether you're trying to, end up with a lot of A's or B's, or you want to get enough of a cushion where you can even get C's, but not have to kill yourself during your finals week. What you don't want to do is be, going into finals not knowing if you're going to pass, or hoping that the curve, if there is one, is high enough to drag you over. Unfortunately, a lot of the Caribbean schools, they do curve the class or the finals to a certain extent, and there are some students that maybe aren't the best test takers, and it's very easy to get complacent and to score below the national average and let the curve carry you. But when you get to your comp exams and your step exams, there's not enough time to go back and relearn everything. So you want to make sure that you're aiming over 60, or at least within range of 60 on all your NBME exams and your final exams, because that's kind of what you need on step is 60 to 64, 65. A lot of the schools require you to get 64% raw on your comp to even take the step. So if you're scoring 40, 45 and the curve is allowing you to pass the class, that sounds great, but when you get to step or you get to comp, you're going to have a really hard time putting all the pieces together, because it's not just one class, right? It's every class you've taken in the preclinicals up to that point. It's biochem, it's physio, it's anatomy, it's micro, it's path. And maybe you would be able to catch up on one or two classes, but there's no way you can go from 40, 45 knowledge in all of those classes up to passing knowledge in 3 or 4 months. It's just too much to do. So you want to stay ahead of it. You want to get from the jump. You want to start ahead. That way, if you want to cruise towards the end, you can. But what you don't want to have to do is play from behind. So have some discipline. Make sure you're getting a routine in your life. But yeah, those are my tips for getting good grades in med school so far. Yeah, and we'll see if we'll see how things go here. But I'm in pretty good shape going into it. I think in neuroscience, my exam scores so far this semester have been 92, 97, 97, 98, and 92. And then my biochemistry exams have been 96, 94, 94, 98. And then the last one was a comp exam, which was like the MDME, and I only scored an 80 on it. So I have some work to do. On the raw, we have our midterms that are NBMEs, and I scored like an 81 raw, which got curved up to a 98, which is a pretty nasty curve. But biochemistry is definitely one of the subjects that Caribbean med schools tend to struggle with a little bit more. Simply because a lot of them don't have a hardcore background in science as far as like biochemistry and organic chemistry and things of that nature. So luckily my undergrad was in biology and chemistry. Now that was, 2007 is when I graduated undergrad. So it's in there, but it's not fresh. And luckily I took some of these courses in chiropractic school too. But the level of depth of the questions on the NBME exams is definitely a lot more than the chiropractic ones, particularly for stuff like biochemistry. Anatomy, it's pretty similar. Physiology, it's definitely harder in med school, but it's stuff like biochem, and I'm sure pharm, when I get to it, is going to be the same thing. Like the level of depth of the questions, the details that are required are just so much more difficult, that you really have to like understand. It's one thing to memorize pathways, but like if you go into this not really understanding basic like organic chemistry, you're going to have a hard time. So if you're going to take this journey and this challenge, I mean, I would suggest that you take it seriously. That doesn't mean you can't have balance, that you can't have fun in your life, but like, don't procrastinate, man. The big thing is, like I'm saying, is try to pay attention as much as you can in class. Don't have that be wasted time that you're having to make up some other time. And then for your classes, again, nobody wants to hear it. Everybody wants some shortcut. They're like, oh, get this resource or that resource. But the best resource you're going to have for your classes is the material that your professors give you. Yeah. Like I said, a couple of other resources, like I said, I use are mostly free ones. I'm not into spending a bunch of money on services. Those companies have all done a really great job of making themselves more necessary than they probably are. And getting other students to get other students involved with that. But I think at the end of the day, the best resource is what the schools give you. Now that said, asterisk, everybody learns different. So if you find a way that works better for you, that's great. But if it was me, like I said, I've tried a bunch of different ways over the years with my 6 college degrees. That has been the thing that has been the most effective and the most efficient for me. Using the resources they give them, me making them into my own Anki cards, and then me studying those Anki cards. It allows me to study, 8 to 10 hours for an exam total and get a really high score. And I think if I cut that in half, I would still probably get like a upper B or a low A, which is pretty darn efficient in my opinion. Like, because that's what we're talking about here. The name of the game is efficiency. Finding enough time to sleep, finding enough time for your hobbies, finding enough time to exercise. Not killing yourself, not having to go home and study every single night. Towards the midterms in the end, you are studying every single night just because everything piles up. But like, at least if you're paying attention in school and using the right resources, there's going to be weeks in the semester where you don't have to study every single night. You can be somewhat of a normal human. Now, if you're in a pass-fail school, or you're at a school that doesn't have mandatory attendance, like none of this applies to you at all. Like, you're going to have completely different strategies. A lot of those folks will watch their lectures pre-recorded by the professors at 2x speed or whatever, and they can get through it in 3 or 4 hours and have their whole day out in front of them. So this is more targeted at like Caribbean med school students that have mandatory attendance. These are the habits that I personally would get into myself. And then my first semester, I think there was 101 students in our class, and I've managed to make Dean's List, which is top 3 in the class. And at that time, I was actually like still doing some working, and I studied a lot less that semester than I've been now, just because like my background in anatomy was a lot stronger comparatively. Histology, I probably should have put more effort in because it was difficult for me. But the level of effort that I'm putting in now for like biochemistry and neuroscience and physiology and these other courses is definitely harder than where you start with. And I think I got lulled to sleep by allowing my anatomy knowledge to kind of carry me with less effort. So that's a way that I was lackadaisical. And if you have personal knowledge, like for our example, like in our class, we have like a pharmacist, right? We have an EMT, we have a nurse practitioner. Like, there's a lot of healthcare providers that have a lot of experience in certain topics. For me, it's neuroscience. I'm a chiropractic neurologist, so I can almost teach the neuroscience course. And that gives me an advantage because I can have more time to study for the other courses because I know this one already. Same thing with like the pharmacists are going to know biochemistry a lot better, and the ENTs and the nurse practitioners are going to be really adept at like cardiac physiology and EKGs and things of that nature. So if there is a topic that you know really well, whether it's from your undergrad or from some other experience, don't let that lull you to sleep just because you don't have to put as much effort into that class, because it can throw off your expectations of how much you're going to have to put in other classes. So yeah, guys, those are my tips for getting good grades in med school from a 40-year-old chiropractor who practiced for, still practices, but has been practicing for 15 years. And yeah, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Drop some comments below if you have any questions for me. If you want to learn more about my school, St. James School of Medicine, I'm going to link them below, sjsm.org. They're enrolling right now. They enroll 3 times a year. Cheapest tuition in the Caribbean. You get to study on a beautiful tropical island, and to be honest, the professors have been just outstanding. Like, they're, my professors, MD, PhDs, over the top. Admin's been great. Can't say enough wonderful things about St. James School of Medicine. So I'll drop their YouTube channel below if you want to check them out. If you guys are looking to go into a second career, if you're having to wait for a long time in the U.S. or Canada, and looking to get into a school right away, definitely recommend St. James School of Medicine. So catch you guys on the next one.